Get ready for the kickoff of Coach Red and Company.
Ready?
An inside look at high school athletics like you've never heard before. Hosted by veteran coaches Red Johnston and Shane Huygens. This podcast dives deep into the world of high school sports, exploring much more than scores and stats. Whether you're a coach, a parent, student athlete, or fan, Coach Red and Company is your go-to podcast for the developments beyond the X's and O's of high school sports. Red and Shane are tackling the big topics like NIL, recruiting, team dynamics, and even the dollars and cents behind the game, such as budgets, facilities, and coaching salaries. Let's talk high school sports. Real, raw, and unfiltered. This is Coach Red and Company.
Touchdown!
Hey everybody, welcome back to Coach Red and Company, episode 2. Hopefully we'll get up to 200 one of these days. But today we're going to talk about transfers, high school transfers, and recruiting. And when I talk about recruiting, I'm not talking college recruiting. We're going to talk about high school to high school recruiting. We got a couple of really good guests today. We got the head football coach from Osceola High School, Eric E.P. Pinellas, on with us. And we also have a baseball coach from Lake Mary High School. Coach Perez will be joining us as well. Kind of give us some different perspectives. Shane and I obviously are basketball guys, so we're trying to get as much diversity with all our different topics. Because, again, it's covering all things high school athletics. It's not just a bunch of old basketball coaches sitting up here complaining about stuff.
Well, it is old basketball coaches, We're adding some other guys to us.
This is Possum Blonde.
Oh, I love it.
Possum Blonde, my uncle used to say.
But two great coaches tonight, Coach. Eric Pinellas, great coach at Osceola County. Perez, awesome coach at Lake Mary, coaching baseball. Football, baseball, a couple old basketball guys. Like you said, trying to diversify a little bit here, our portfolio. And include a lot of people onto this our podcast.
And when it comes to kind of this whole open enrollment thing, which you've done a little research on, and I'll let you talk about that in just a second, Coach. Open enrollment and recruiting within football, basketball, and baseball are three different looks. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. So give us a little bit of insight, Shane, into this open enrollment thing in the state of Florida.
Well, when I was looking at the doing some research on that. When it comes to open enrollment, Red, like you said, it's called controlled open enrollment, which technically means that a school has to have room for that student to come. And me and you know that that's probably how it works until you get that stud linebacker calls you up and says, "Hey, coach, you think you got any room for me?" And I'm sure things get some strings get pulled. And kids get into school, kids get spots when they probably maybe weren't necessarily in the top of that list for that spot. The numbers, I think we saw some numbers from like the 21-22 school year. There was 270,000 students that used the open enrollment aspect to transfer. That's roughly about 9% of, the total students. Now, obviously, those aren't all sports related. We know that. But we're just throwing that number out to you to let you know how many kids were using this open enrollment. And being an Orange County guy, like I am, and Red as well, when you go to the Orange County website, there was roughly, if I'm recalling top of my head here, Red, 8 to 10 possibly different transfer ways, with the COE being one of the ways. So there was multiple ways to transfer from school to school. We're kind of talking a little bit more on the open enrollment one, just because that's been in effect in the last 10 years. So it's definitely something that's out there. A lot of parents are making choices, which is a great thing, right? We're both parents. You've got 2 daughters. I have 2 sons. And as a parent, we always want to make the best choice for our kids. And sometimes it's academic. Sometimes it's sports. Heck, you know what? It might be music. It might be, Osceola's. I don't know who's got the best band in Orange County. Maybe Jones. Maybe you transfer to J High because you want to be in the band.
Yeah, I'll tell you, West Orange parents back in about 98 thought they had the best band in the world. I'll tell you that. That's another story.
It's another story
altogether with that one. But
I love it.
You talk about numbers. The FHSA in the last 3 or 4 years has really started to do a good job of
tracking
those numbers. In 22-23 school year, there was 5,100 transfers across the state of Florida. The next year, 23-24, there was 6,465 transfers. As of yesterday, when I got a hold of Amanda at the FHSA in eligibility and compliance, she told me there was 5,635. Now, I checked a month ago when I did my interview with Craig, and there was 250 less. So in a month, we've gone up 250 EL6 forms, which is the transfer form to say you're transferring from one school to another. So that's, to me, whereas we're kind of on pace to double what the 22-23 school year was. And we start talking 10,000 kids transferring in the state of Florida, that kind of sends a red flag up. It just says kids don't have that resilience and resolve anymore. Kind of whether it's I'm not good enough to play here and I want to transfer, and I can understand that. If you're not getting the playing time and you want to transfer one time, I'm okay with that.
Right.
Sometimes a team may be loaded and you may be one of those kids that just get kind of overlooked because of the numbers. And you know what? I can go over to school B, who's got a really good program, and really excel there. We may have an opportunity to talk to a parent of a young man who left Osceola and went over to TFA because he was kind of second or third on that depth chart and he wanted to play, and he ended up going to TFA and had one heck of a year for this kid. He's got a few mid-major offers right now. He's actually this weekend on a recruiting trip down to South Florida, FIU, FAU, and Miami. So it definitely benefited. I think as coaches, we leave to take better jobs. I left Cypress Creek to go to Osceola because it was a better basketball job. And everywhere I went, I was always trying to better myself as a coach and get a better job. I was at Evans for 4 years. I left to go to Florida State. I come back to Popka. As a coach, I was just trying to move to get the better job. So I can't really knock a kid for doing it. But I also understand with my kids, we live in Orange County, on the south end of Orange County. Yeah. They're zoned for Cypress Creek. My wife taught in Osceola County. So we did the open enrollment back when my oldest daughter was a freshman. I looked at a lot of things. I looked at the athletic program at Cypress Creek. Having coached there, I had some inside knowledge. I also looked at kind of the academics with volleyball. As my daughter was a freshman, obviously didn't have a car, so getting her back and forth home, she could have obviously rode her bike from Cypress here. But my wife worked right around the corner. Now she's teaching at Osceola High School, so it was an easy transition for us. But they stayed at Osceola. They played all 4 years of their high school career. Even, I spoke about this before. My youngest daughter moved from playing middle in volleyball over to the right side. Coach had a girl that she thought was better, didn't give her an opportunity to even play right side, but she stuck it out. She persevered, and that's kind of one of those things that, as a parent and as a coach, I wanted her to understand you got to go through some adversity sometimes in life. You're not always going to get your way. You're not always going to be the best player. So you got to stick it out, and we're not, just going to transfer just because, you can play, and I think with some sports, volleyball being one of them, soccer, baseball, a lot of that club and summer ball is where you're going to get recruited more anyway. So the high school season wasn't as important for her college recruiting. I think the high school experience to me personally is one of the most amazing things there is. Playing with your friends, playing with your buddies, and just all the things that you learn. I don't think club volleyball is teaching her a lot of the life lessons that should be taught, at the high school level or even at the club level. That's another show that we're going to get into,
absolutely.
Down the road is this pay to play and, club type sports. But so we've been there, we've been those kids, but we stayed where we went. We used open enrollment. We got there, we stayed there. Some kids, I don't think this is the norm where a kid will go 4 schools in 4 years. It does happen.
Absolutely.
You'll read about those outliers. And that's what I hope that open enrollment doesn't create, a kid leaving 3 or 4 years. I think a lot of it has to do with parents today. And we're parents, you and I. your son played at 3 different schools throughout, but you were trying to do what was best for your son to get him to, play college baseball. Hopefully he does walk on and play at Briarcliff this year, which I think would be awesome for him. I think he'd love that, but obviously that's a family decision that you guys have to make. So,
and Red, you saying that when we, like I said, so when parents or players watch our podcast, we're not telling you like, hey, we don't believe in transfers. Like, that's not where we're coming from here, because our kids did it. Red just told you he did it with his daughters. I did it with my son. We're just letting you know that, that's a viable option, right? But it's, whenever you transfer something like that, it's kind of like the buyer beware a little bit, right? Like later on tonight, we're gonna have some interviews. You might hear some different stories from these coaches on kids that maybe drop out. A week later, they're back in their schools. Grass always greener type thing. So always, it's when I tell my kids that I coached in high school, my own son, my post grad, hey, you got to do some research a little bit when you're going on to colleges, right? Like you just don't pick, like when a kid goes on a recruiting trip and he goes to a college and he looks at the weight room, he goes, man, that weight room was incredible. Yeah, you're comparing it like an apple to an orange. You're comparing a college weight room to a high school weight room. So you do some research there. And now with our trickle down effect from college to high school and the high school kids transferring a little bit, hey, if you're transferring for sports reasons, which is what we're talking about here, you might want to do, you might want to do a little research, look up some facts, figure out some things, because you want to make an educated decision, right? Because there's a lot, like obviously now, if you're good at baseball, you got a lot of options. You're good at basketball, options, good at track and field, lacrosse, swimming. There's a lot of viable options out there. So you're going to want to do some research to make sure that you're making the right choice for your son and daughter.
We have to ask ourselves as parents, is this going to be the best move for this kid? Is moving him 2 or 3 times going to be what's best for him, or is sticking it out, going through the process? Can the guy or girl coach? Are they building them into a quality young man or young woman? Because that's more important than wins and losses.
Absolutely.
Yep, we'd all love to have a free college scholarship, but we'll get into that when we talk about college recruiting. The less than probably 3-4% of kids go from high school to college, even with the 4 different levels or 5 different levels of college, Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA, junior college, and then you got a couple of smaller colleges that Coach talked about, the Christian college.
Christian colleges, yeah.
So there's a lot of different opportunities, but I want my daughters to be quality young people. John Thompson from Georgetown University had a great quote: "Don't let 7 to 9 pounds of air determine your existence," right? Because the air goes out of the ball for all of us at some point. What lessons did we learn? How much have we grown as an individual, as a person? What kind of person are we? How did sports help shape us into being a quality person? Is what I want to look at.
Absolutely.
So definitely got a great show. Coach Pinellas and Coach Perez coming up. They're going to talk to us. Hopefully we got a parent that may come on later in the show to talk about kind of recruiting and open enrollment from a parent perspective, which will be a great thing to hear from. We speak kind of as parents, but also as coaches. So we're kind of a little bit of bias, I guess, or not necessarily biased, but we have a little bit of a different insight than a lot of people do. So to hear it from a parent perspective, where all they have to worry about is their own kid and no team, will be interesting to hear. So look forward to that.
Let's get into it.
All right, everybody, it's time to talk with Coach Eric Pinellas from Osceola High School, kind of get his take on the open enrollment and the transfer rule that's going on right now. So let's get into a great conversation with Coach Eric Pinellas. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest here on Coach Red and Company for episode 2 on transfers and recruiting. We have the head football coach from Osceola High School, Eric E.P. Pinellas. First of all, Coach, congratulations on Coach of the Year honors in the OBC and for making it to the state championship game this year.
I appreciate it, my brother. I appreciate it.
Now, give us a scouting report real quick on EP. Where you're from, how long you've been at Osceola, just some highlights.
Scouting report on EP. Born and raised in Kissimmee, Florida. Graduate of Osceola High School, class of 1990. This is my 25th year at Osceola, and I've been the head track coach all of that time, and I've been an assistant football coach up until the last 4 years when I became the head. This was my fourth season as a head football coach, 21 as an assistant.
And how many different head coaches did you get to work under, learn from, pick and choose kind of things that they did well that you've added to your coaching?
I came in under Coach Seibel. Like first of all, I never wanted to coach. Let's just throw that out there. I never wanted to be a coach. I was kind of forced into it by Greg Johnson. He kind of like forced me to coach. Like, this is what you're going to freaking do. And I was like, whatever. So I was under Coach Seibel. And after Coach Seibel was out, then I was under Coach Rolson, Jeff Rolson, who's the head football coach right now at Apopka. And then after Coach Rolson, I was under Coach Doug Nichols.
Awesome. I know when I coached there, I had the honor and opportunity to coach the basketball team from 05 to 07, and you had a hell of a track program going. And I think people around Central Florida, definitely know you for the 20-plus years of being in track and field and producing some great athletes. So congrats on that success. So, Coach, we're talking about high school transfers, recruiting. Back in 2015, the state legislature decided we're going to give kids the opportunity for open enrollment to go to any school they want. And I know they actually, created the law more for academic reasons, to give kids the opportunity that may not have great academics at one school to be able to transfer across the county lines or even within the county to go to a better academic situation. But as with a lot of things, people find a way around it. Open enrollment has created a lot of transfers across all sports in high school. Talk a little bit about that. How has open enrollment affected the Cowboy football program, your track program, and Osceola High School athletics in general?
I think from an athletic standpoint, it really affects the big three the big three sports, your footballs, your basketballs, and your baseball. Track and field wise, not as so much of a hit. You do get those transfers and every now and then, but for us, I mean, we've lost a number of guys to other schools. We've gained a couple. I mean, it's not even close in how many kids have transferred out to other football programs in the county and in the other parts of the state. But people have always had that moniker that, Osceola is this big recruiting machine, and we're recruiting and bringing all these kids in and things of that nature like that. And that's farthest thing from the truth. If kids decide to come, kids decide to come. There's nobody out there, we don't have street agents that are out there promising kids the world to come to Osceola High School. I mean, like, what do we have that's attractive outside of winning programs? We got no transportation to offer them. We don't have no houses they offer them, no money. So, what's the enticement inside, what I'm saying? So, but it's definitely helped some programs around Central Florida, around the state of Florida, not to call out any schools or anything of that nature like that. But from our perspective, Osceola High School, and specifically from a football perspective, we've gotten some kids in that have helped our program. Most recently, this year we had the addition of Connor Howes and Adrian Gonzalez, who came over to us from St. Cloud. Basketball, Steve picked up a kid from Poinciana, but at the same time, he lost 3 kids to Poinciana. So we had years where we've lost 5 or 6 kids to Liberty. We had another year where we lost, football-wise, we lost another 5 to Poinciana. Recently this year, we lost a couple to First Academy. We lost a couple to St. Cloud. So, I mean, it has its checks and balances, man. So we don't really dwell on it. We always say if a kid doesn't want to be at Osceola, we wish them well. We don't have any ill will towards them. We wish them all the success. If we're not a fit for you and your parents decide that somewhere else is a better place for you, we're going to wish you all the well and hope that situation works out for you.
Yeah, I think Osceola County is known for athletic excellence, and I think it's kind of that whole, if you build it, they will come. They've had successful programs in a lot of different sports, and a lot of kids want to be part of that. And I think what happens is a lot of kids go, oh, I want to be a part of that. And they come, but they're not as good as they think they are. And they find out pretty quick they're not as good as they think they are. And so then they'll travel to a lesser successful team. and may get some playing time and put up a few points, but they're not getting that same quality coaching or same quality competition every day.
Absolutely. I mean, and we've had that happen. We've had kids come into the program and who were successful, who came in with some good numbers, and we were like, oh, okay, it's pretty cool. And it just didn't work well for them. And, they ended up transferring. When kid transferred back to where he came from, the school that he came. We've had 2 kids transfer right back to the schools that they came from because I guess it was a little bit more than they thought it was. And from a football perspective, we practice hard, we condition hard. Everything that we do, from a football perspective, we try to get the best out of our kids, whether it's off-season stuff, our summer workouts, our spring. And that's like a shock for some kids because there's only one way to do this, man, and that we don't change what we do. We've been doing the same off-season stuff since like 2000. Nothing's changed in everything that we do, so we're not reinventing the wheel, man. We're just keeping the wheel rolling. So some of that's a shock for kids. I had a kid come in recently, and when he transferred out, and he said it's the hardest he'd ever worked in his life. He was only there like a couple of days, but so I mean, it's not for everybody.
I was just getting ready to say that it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
So with the open enrollment, and have you seen, and, we always hear stuff, right? Yeah. I mean, in the coaching circles, you're always hearing this or that, or this guy's been talking to this kid or that kid. Have you seen a big increase in coaches and programs trying to recruit players because it's easier now? When I was at Osceola, if you wanted a kid, it was, you had to find an address for the kid, or he had to come up with an address. It could be, well, I want to get in this magnet program, but obviously you had to do that your freshman or sophomore year because you couldn't say, oh, I want to get a magnet as a senior. So there was a lot of hurdles 10, 15 years ago that if you really wanted a kid, he would have to jump through. But now that you have open enrollment, that just cuts out the address. Now you just got to get transportation. So have you found it that, some schools are trying to recruit more now since it's a little bit easier?
That's that elephant in the room, man. It's not like it's something that's discussed. It happens. When you have, when you play a team and for a fact that team had 20 kids transfer, that 20 kids didn't just one day wake up and at the same time saying, I'm going to this school. So I'm pretty sure it does happen in certain places because there are schools, let's be honest, there's schools out there that get double-digit transfers every year. Not necessarily, I'm not talking about necessarily Central Florida, but around the state. There's teams that there's basketball teams that we know that constantly get transfers from in and out of state. There's football teams that get transfers from, into their programs and stuff like that. So I'm sure in some capacity that does happen, but it's not like something that that people sit around and talk about. I mean, if they're wise, they're not talking about, or at least they're not talking about it around me. And not like I'm going to run back and tell anybody because I really don't care. But it's just, it's not the common thing to do.
Yeah, we talked to Craig Damon last week or in our first episode, and his thing was, people will come to him at games or send him an email. Hey, I know X school is doing this.
Yeah.
Okay, well, are you willing to give us documentation, copies of text messages, emails that, well, no, I don't want to get involved.
Yeah,
well, then why are we going to bring it up?
Yeah, they don't take anonymous reporting at the FHSAA office. You got to put your name on it.
Exactly.
Like a coach said one time, I think it was Coach Greg Johnson said the same thing. If you're out here and you want to put your name on, tell it on another school, you got to make sure that your school is clean for the next 20, 25 years because you tell on somebody, they're going to come back and tell on you. So you got to be squeaky clean. So people just kind of let stuff go.
Yep. So let me ask you this. I mean, you've been around this for 20 plus years. Osceola's put a number of kids at high major schools. You just had a couple of guys sign at Ole Miss and Auburn and Florida last year and the kid that went to Oklahoma. So if you had seen a kid that's been to 3, 4, 5 schools in high school, how do you think that affects a kid's college recruitment?
It probably should, because especially with the portal and the way the portal thing is working and everything like that, it should be some type of red flag for coaches that listen, if it didn't work out at this school, he jumped to that school. It didn't work there, so he jumped to that school. So if I bring this kid into my college program and he's sitting second team, is he going to stay or is he going to go into the portal? So it should be a red flag. But, with the millions of dollars that are on the line for these college coaches, man, and the win now philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of high school coaches, we say, a lot of college coaches, they're in that win now mode. So the development has gone out the window. They don't want to take a chance on this kid who you could bring him in as a freshman, red shirt him, second year. Then by that third year, he's ready to go in your program. They need that kid that could come in now. From a track perspective, schools recruit track athletes, and if you want to be at a major Power 4 program, they're recruiting kids now that can come in and as a freshman score in the conference championship. So now you're talking about you want a high school kid in the girls 100 that could come in as a freshman running 11.3, 11.2 in that capacity. You know what I'm saying? It's not a lot of those out there. So and then from a football perspective, you want that, everything with them is about, the measurables. I had, a cornerback 2 years ago, Bo Masco. I used to tell everybody how great of a defensive back Bo Masco was. And, I had a school tell me, like, Coach, he's a great kid. He's probably going to play in the NFL one time. But last year, we took a DB because Bo was 5'10". The coach told me that the year before, they took a DB that was under 6 foot. So to keep their under 6 foot to over 6 foot DB ratio, they couldn't take another kid that was under 6 foot, even though he was a hell of a player, because he couldn't sell it to his head coach based on how they have to recruit.
That's well, I didn't know that,
wild.
and I talked to Coach Shane a little bit off camp. As we all coach, you learn a little bit about, different sports, but hearing that from you, it's like, I guess, recruiting a point guard. Some guys like little guards, some guys like 6'5" point guards. If the kid can go, he can go.
Everyone's different.
That's, kind of my philosophy is if he can go, he can go.
Yeah.
But, that's interesting, especially at that Power 5 level, and I think, you're right. I'm sure on Saturday mornings you're probably in the office watching film. And, I was watching Game Day one day, and Nick Saban talked about going from being a transactional coach where it's all about winning and what you can do for me to a transformational coach. And I think, and I was that way early on as a head coach. I was like, hey, I want to win. I want people to think I'm the greatest coach since Bobby Knight and Dean Smith. As we get older, we learn it's about building those relationships. It's about making the kid better in our sport, making him a better young man. I got a couple great books that I'll share with you later, but it's called Season of Life, about a football coach guy named Joe Ehrman. Who's the defensive lineman for the Baltimore Colts back in the day, and how he kind of changed and looked at it. And it's, all about developing young men for others. And so it was a great book, but being that transformational coach versus a transactional coach. But if I'm getting $9 million a year as a head coach at a Power 4 school, it's about winning, and I think we'll find out Monday night whether Mr. Day wins it all and, gets to keep his job, or if, he loses, that the boosters and the AD say, well, wait a minute, you lost to Michigan 4 times in a row and you lost to Natty. So, we're going to look somewhere else, which is crazy from the success that he's had. But, that's just kind of the way it is. Well, hey, Coach, we greatly appreciate you.
Super appreciate
taking time out to come speak with us. We wish you all the luck in the world at Osceola. I know they've had some success, but it takes a lot of preparation and hard work to get to that sustained success. So keep it up. We'll definitely keep following you. And I know you got a lot of support with those younger parents. I see those little cowboys and some of your assistants and, family guys working with those kids. So I don't know how much longer we're going to keep doing this thing, but hey, however long it is, good luck to you, and wish your daughter well tomorrow in Gainesville for us.
Hey, appreciate it, man. I appreciate it, but we're heading out early in the morning, brother. So
I hear you. I'm going to Tampa for a 3-day volleyball tournament, so I know what you're saying, brother.
The grind is real, man. The grind is real. I appreciate you, brother.
So, hey, EP, have a good night, buddy. We appreciate it. All right, everybody. Our second interview of the night, we're going to talk with Coach Jeff Perez, head baseball coach at Lake Mary High School. He's been at Lake Mary High School for a number of years. Previous to that, he was at Winter Springs High Schools, had a lot of great success. Definitely want to hear what he has to say from a baseball perspective, because we just talked to Coach Eric Pinellas, football guy. Just kind of love to hear the difference in not necessarily the recruiting, but the open enrollment and the transfers and how that works in the different sports. So let's go talk with Coach Perez.
Yeah, I want to introduce Lake Mary head coach Jeffery Perez. He's a Lake Mary head coach for baseball. Coach Perez, let's give Coach Perez a little round of applause, Red.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Yeah, man. Appreciate it.
Coach Perez is a longtime coach at Lake Mary, coach at Winter Springs, has coached travel baseball with some of the best organizations in Florida for a long time. Hey, Coach, we really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule on this busy Friday night.
Nah, man, it's a pleasure. Always for you, Shaner. You know that.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Hey, real quick, we're this episode, we're talking a lot about recruiting and transfers. And Eric Pinellas from Osceola County was on with us before. Osceola guy. We wanted to get a little Seminole County guys on. He was football, you're baseball. With the transfer route, transfer up in Seminole County, talk to us a little bit. What do you see up there in Seminole County as far as baseball and maybe just some other sports that you follow at Lake Mary and so forth?
Well, it's definitely becoming more popular, that's for sure. I mean, back when I started, things like that were kind of rare. Kids, basically, you're zoned for a certain school, you go there, that was it. Now, of course, with the open enrollment, it's kind of a free-for-all. You see a real high number of transfers, not only in Seminole County, but I'm recognizing that all throughout Central Florida. It's affected us a little bit here and there. Thankfully, I've been able to hold on to more than I've lost, but it certainly happens. And like I said, more than anything, man, it's just you're seeing it more prevalent nowadays. For whatever reason, I think there's a million different reasons we may get into, but
Right.
You're definitely seeing more kids bounce around.
So on the baseball side, are you seeing that a lot? Or are you seeing it just overall in the football and every other side as well?
Baseball as well.
Okay.
As well. I think I don't know. I do follow high school sports, but I'd say maybe football might be the most prevalent, of course, and definitely the most recognized. But you do see it in baseball. I think a lot of the kids, more than transferring around, are just maybe going to school as a freshman to a different place that they're not zoned for. You see them traveling all over the place, but I'm definitely seeing it in baseball too.
Okay. Well, I know that Lake Mary is a beautiful school up there in Seminole County, so I'm sure that you've probably benefited a little bit from some transfers, but I'm sure you've had some guys left your program. As far as the transfers go, how do you feel at your spot? Have you benefited, do you think, a little bit more, or have you maybe been hurt a little bit more? We've heard some guy, in Osceola, they had some guys that come in, guys left, and they've kind of been equal. So on your level, do you feel, how do you feel on that way?
Well, I'm a little biased. I think that I have been a little lucky on the incoming side, honestly, and probably a little less on the leaving side. I'd like to think that just the culture we breed and the things we teach, the success we've had, have been able to kind of keep the kids at Lake Mary. And then, of course, draw the attention to those who are potentially seeking other schools. I've been lucky, and recently, of course, because it's becoming so popular, where kids have, definitely moved in more than moved out, thankfully.
Yeah. And Coach Red had mentioned that before, that relationships you build with your kids, with the players on your team, is definitely beneficial to, like you said, you mentioned the word culture. Like the culture you have up there with the Rams, that kids just don't want to leave the program.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think that's the case. I mean, you probably don't coach for the W's and the L's. You probably coach for the kids. And if you're doing that, I think they recognize it. And in turn, they're going to want to be part of it and stick around. And Lake Mary specifically is a tight-knit community. And I think the word gets around. And more than anything, the parents talk, and especially with travel baseball nowadays, kids from all over various schools will be on the same team. So they can talk about their high school experiences and talk about the coaches and the things that they learn and the way that they do things. And certainly that's going to benefit some schools more than others.
Yeah, Coach, exactly. Coach Red?
Yeah. You hit on it, and I was telling, a number of people this. I heard Nick Saban talk about transactional versus transformational, and you talk about not coaching for the wins and losses, which is definitely a transactional thing, and it sounds more like you've kind of moved into that transformational side where it's about helping the kids develop. It's about building that culture and making them stay. Talk a little bit about that. We're as a young coach, I was terrible as far as transformation. I was a
Myself as
Bobby
well.
Weren't
Knight,
we all?
get in your butt. I want to win, 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 win. But as we get older, I
Yeah.
mean, were you like that a little bit, kind of more transactional, or just the way you're built, been more transformational?
No, not a little bit. I was a terrible coach when I was young. I mean, I was really good at yelling. I was really good at throwing things and always chasing the victory instead of really worrying about the kid. And I mean, I've been around a while now. One of my staff members played for me in the second graduating class at Winter Springs, my first stop. And, I tell them, geez, I was so bad. I apologize to all my old alumni that I see of how terrible I thought I was. And, just chasing the wins, man. You want to just try and really establish yourself, from an ego standpoint and basically try and solidify the fact that you belong in that position. And I think that you lose sight, or maybe the other way around. Maybe as you do get older, like you said, Red, you gain sight of really what's important and why you do it. And I've definitely changed, and I've improved so much over the years.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think,
Red.
With this open enrollment, if you could change something, what would you look to change in this? Or, if we could talk to the legislatures and, Craig Damon at the FHSA, what would you like to see change with all of this?
Well, open enrollment in general is a touchy subject. I mean, initially the way schools got around it was that they'd have certain types of programs at their school. So, if you had an engineering program, all of a sudden my son wants to be an engineer. So you find a seat into whatever school and they got you in. But now with open enrollment, obviously that's changed a little bit. You just take a look at the NCAA, right? I don't want to compare at all, but it's a free-for-all. And unfortunately, things are becoming a free-for-all now. And it's harder to coach. It's harder to coach when you're not exactly sure who's going to be there. That cultural aspect that you're trying to build becomes a little bit more difficult. And, you're trying to maybe please instead of, just really focusing on the kids, I wish I had an answer for it. I mean, I kind of like the old system. The kids who live there, go to your school, but that'll never happen. No way. That will never happen again because the parents are a little bit too powerful, and obviously the politicians and everything have a little too much power. I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. I think maybe, if nothing else, maybe, just limit where they can go, how many times they can transfer, things like that. But I haven't seen multiple schools very often, them leaving once, and that's pretty much it. You only get 4 years of the deal.
Yeah, and me and Coach Red had talked in episode 1 about the trickle down effect kind of coming from the college and the high
Yeah.
school kids kind of seeing that. And
Yeah.
you know how high school guys are, they're all gonna, the new thing is, they transfer portal, so now I'm gonna leave here and jump here and so forth. So you saying that you really have only seen guys, transfer to 1 year. When it comes to college recruiting, which you obviously have a ton of experience with, coaching guys on pretty much every level possible, putting guys in Major League Baseball, recently Dylan Cruz. Have you seen anything with college coaches asking you, Coach Perez, about guys that have maybe transferred in, being worried that they're going to be one of those guys that would jump in the portal if they brought them on board?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a question. A lot about not really so much the kid. Believe it or not, it's more about the parents. What kind of parents do they have, and is that something we need to worry about? Is that a red flag? As well as the kid. What type of kid is he? That'll always be one of the questions asked. Certainly, those are always questions. I think that the recruiting landscape it's ever changing.
Yeah.
So, we're chatting a little before we got started, and you're seeing less college coaches come to baseball games now, high school baseball games as well. It is really focused on a lot of word of mouth versus them getting out there. Recruiting budgets aren't what they used to be. And let's face it, they play when we play. So,
Yeah.
it's tough to get out there. So, they can only find certain times to get out there. And a lot of it is really translated into that summer scene.
Gotcha. So parents, if you're listening, hey, when they recruit your kid, they're recruiting your parents. They're recruiting you too as well. So make sure you're
They
on
know
your
who
best
you are.
behavior. They know who you are, no doubt about it.
Coach, let me, I've always said that high school coaches are some of the greatest coaches because they have to adapt to what they get. I know basketball, we can, press, we could be a team, we could, a number of different offenses, man-to-man zone. Football's kind of the same way. We can throw it all over the field or we can run the wing tee. I'm not obviously an aficionado on baseball, right? Are there systems in baseball like that as well? Or,
Yeah.
how do you coach the kids that you have? Do you have to adapt all the time?
Yeah, I think so. I think that that's part of the fun of coaching. I think that every year, you get a brand new puzzle and you have to try and fit these pieces together and make it work the best you possibly can. Sometimes teams and players have the ability to really control the bat very well, so it allows you to do different things. Some have speed, some have power. Sometimes you have great defense, sometimes you don't. And of course, great pitching, and sometimes you don't. So you have to manufacture every run that you possibly can, and you're willing to bunt people over and sacrifice and do, play that small ball type of game versus just sitting back and smashing the ball all over the place. So, yeah, you definitely have to adapt. And that, like I said, that besides being around the kids and trying to find out what makes them tick, I think that that's part of the fun, to really just try and what's going to also produce on the field. What type of offense are we going to have to run, any specific types of defenses and pick plays and things like that. That's why we do what we do. That's
Right.
part of that competitiveness within our coaching, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the great part about baseball, Red. My son played baseball for travel ball for a long time. That's how I kind of know Coach Perez. We become darn near like brothers. And it's just the watching the baseball. It's so much different than basketball, because basketball, the plays happen so quick. Like before you can call timeout, Red, the other team's got 2 threes, a steal, a layup, and a dunk, and you're down 9.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah,
baseball
right.
is kind of you can kind of see it coming up. Okay, who do I got on the deck next? Okay, I'm going to bunt this guy over, and then the next guy is going to come up. I'm going to tell him hit the ground ball to the right side, hopefully get him to third. Next
Right.
guy's my 4 hitter. He's going to hit the double for me. There's my run. Or
Right.
hey, I got a stud on the mound. He's going to hold him to 1 or 2. I just got to create 3. We're going to win this game 3-2, 3-1. So being a basketball guy, being in that baseball scene for 8, 9 years, 10 years, it's a fun game. I know some people, they're not big baseball guys because it's a little slower moving, but if you're a chess player, baseball is the game, because it's like it's a little bit of chess moves here and there.
Definitely.
Coach, switching over, we talked about transfers, recruiting. Are you seeing a lot of recruiting on the baseball side? I was a basketball guy for 25 years, and I could tell stories for hours on recruiting stuff, and football guys recruiting.
Right.
And, obviously we had a big blow up here in Orlando with the First Academy being charged with recruiting violations and having a couple-year postseason ban. Do you see that in baseball a lot, or?
No, not really anything like that, honestly. There's always shady stuff going on, man.
Right.
You know the way that it is. But and some people are just shady people.
So I'm more interested in the recruiting. Is Lake Brantley coming over recruiting your kid, or Winter Springs coming to recruit your kid? Is there a lot of recruiting high school to high school, like where you're trying in baseball, like there is in some other sports?
No, man, that doesn't happen. One good thing about Seminole County, I like to say, is that we have a lot of good coaches. The 8 high schools there, we're all friends, so to speak, and there's a tight knit group. If kids transfer, it really doesn't have anything to do with the coaches. I could never even cite one not even a rumor about a coach in our county contacting a kid. Normally, that really does happen within the parents. It really does. Or
Yeah.
they're just looking to get out. We talked about the culture early on. They're looking to find something a little bit better, a better fit. My son is a catcher, for example, and maybe the school down the street just lost their stud catcher, and they want to slide into that position. Things like that happen a bunch, but definitely not coaches probably, cherry picking from other teams. I just don't see that.
That's awesome.
Gotcha.
That's good to know. We
Thank
just need
goodness.
to get us basketball
Yeah, exactly.
guys.
I don't want to
Those
deal with that.
basketball guys. We need to get them a little bit better morals, I guess. But hey,
Agreed.
Coach, it's Friday night. We appreciate it. You coming on at such short notice. Great insight. We wish you well this year in your team and your season. And if there's anything we can do, feel free to reach out to
Let
us.
us
We
know.
may have you on again, down the road. Tell all
Appreciate
your
it.
friends, like, subscribe, and share on our YouTube page, and we'd appreciate it. There we go.
Yeah.
Hey,
We give
a
a
little
teaser.
shameless plug, real quick, shameless plug for one of my former players. We're retiring Dylan Cruz's number on February 6th
Perfect.
at Lake Mary High School. So probably about 6:30. If you got a
you're in-
chance and you want to see Dylan, we're retiring his number. Obviously, he's now a big leaguer with the Nationals and played at LSU, two-time SEC Player of the Year and Golden Spike Award winner. National
Unbelievable.
champion, and was an incredible Ram too. So
Yeah.
just
That's
a little
not
plug
that's
for
not a
that.
shameless plug. That's just a
that's
a plug
fantastic.
in general.
A proud coach's
proud
plug. I'll
plug.
tell you that.
Something
Yeah,
you should
no
be
doubt.
proud of. Absolutely.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you,
Appreciate
guys.
you, Coach.
Yeah, appreciate you guys. Thank you, man.
Man, what a great interview with Coach Jeff Perez from Lake Mary High School. Had some great stuff to say. Love the fact that he talked about Seminole County coaches, the 8 different schools. They're kind of a unique little group. They're kind of buddies. So, even though a kid may transfer from one school to another, it's not necessarily a coach trying to recruit or poach the other kid. He talked about it being more the parents, looking for a better opportunity for their sons to play. Like you said, a catcher may have graduated from one school and my kid's a catcher. So, hey, let me try to slide in there and pick up the starting spot there. So great stuff from him. Really liked hearing different perspectives from the different coaches. Unfortunately, we didn't get to the recruiting part, talking about high schools recruiting other players from different schools, but wanted to thank everybody for continuing to watch. Please like, subscribe, and share on our YouTube platform. Share, leave a comment on Spotify or any of the other podcast platforms, and we will definitely get back to you with an answer. If you have a topic that you would like to hear Coach Shane and I talk about, please let us know. If there's a guest that you might want us to try to get on, we'll definitely do our best to do that. I want to, my goal is to try to bring as many experts from all the different areas that we talk about onto the show to give you as much information as we can. So thank you very much for watching this show. We look forward to seeing you guys on our next show. Until then, keep swinging for the fences.
This has been Coach Red and Company, the premier podcast that takes an inside look at high school athletics like you've never heard before. Touchdown! Both Red and Shane are veteran coaches, and their passion is high school sports and going beyond just the X's and O's. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube at Coach Red and Company. Email us at coachredandcompany@gmail.com.